what I ate, I think. Let's go. Lifting my mind from a dead state. It's time to celebrate. Sit back and dinner late, just like going on a dinner date. Whoa, like an airplane taking off with this hit. Yo, the speed is really lit. I hope I can make you visualize and feel this. They send me back to a time when MCs spar with those lines, when music was far from there in the borderline. I'ma shine without even trying because they get together where I put it together. Shoot for the look like you was online. Tongue wrestling about to lose your grip. Then your armor get chipped, but you better not slip. Check it, but I don't even have no time for that. I'd rather make moves instead of get mine, so I can definitely track the kind of things that emold your life to get right. The road is down, so stay focused like riding on the motorbike. I know you like this, so just don't fight this. Someone give you wisdom, so please go ahead and bite this. I'm so confused when critics try to pull me out without a doubt, but they change their mind when they hear the words that come out this last mouth. I can't change the person who I am, the way I think, or how hard I go for the fam. All I knew I was put on this planet for a purpose, so why even get myself caught in the jam and be acute false because of the person who I am. Certain things that I knew to better, greater purpose led to a lot of bodies being slain. But prepared all the countless hearses. I represent a healer, so listening to the real girl, the light to unite. Please don't you give up and feel us. That's what my mind's saying. But I hear those flies scheming and praying like I can't repeat what they're saying, speaking in close conversation. I say it like this: if you're so bold to throw shade, why not promote to one mention a person that not get paid? Hey, we the same people at the end of the day. All we gotta do is synchronize as one. We all one for fall down to have no choice but to fade away. I appreciate the fact just to be alive and maybe reflect about all the small tries. I rely on visions that I picture in my long time. Manifest his way, I don't have an artificial clone mind. I climb to the dome, stepping up my spine, send a Jacob ladder. You must use your metaphysical eyes to see between the reality of metaphorical storylines. Ride to the occasion like a sea's boat. The weight can't be so long, the pressure can't take no more. It's about to blow, so watch me grow. I'm just keeping it true. I'm dedicated to you, so I have no time to play. I'm just keeping it true. I'm dedicated to you, so I have no time to play. I'm just keeping it true. I'm dedicated to you, so I have no time to play.
All right. Today, we'll be going into the subject: who is Queen Mu? Follow along with the lost continental Mu, and also something from the book "The Ancient Giants of America." And all right, let's get into it. Queen Mu is a mythical Mayan queen written by about by Augustus Lee Plungion and his wife Alex Dixon Lee Plungion. The Plungions undertook the first extravagation of Chicken Issa in 1875, based their theories about Queen Mu on the morals and inscriptions that they found there. It is generally accepted that Plungion's theories are not supported by the archaeological evidence. All right, let's look to the word Chicken Issa. Chicken Issa, often spelled Chicken Izza in English and traditional Yucatec Maya. Yucatec Maya pronunciation was a large pre-colonial Colombian city built by the Mayan people of the terminal classic period. The archaeological site is located in Tenon's um, Mesopalati, Yucatan State, Mexico. Chichen Itza was a major focal point in the northern Maya lowlands from late Classic C AD 600 through 900 through the terminal Classic C AD 800 through 900 and into the earlier proportion of the post-classic period CAD 900 through 1200. The site exhibits a multitude of agricultural styles reminiscent of styles seen in central Mexico and other Polk and Chinese styles of the northern Maya lowlands. The presence of central Mexican styles was once thought to have been representative of direct migration or even conquest from central Mexico, but most complementary interpretations view the presence of these non-Maya styles more as the result of cultural diffusion. All right, Chicken Itza was one of the largest Maya cities, and it was likely to have been one of the mythical great cities, or Tolians, referred to in later Mesoamerican literature. The city may have had the most diverse population in the Maya world, a factor that could have contributed to the variety of agricultural styles at the site. Excuse that. The ruins of Chichen Itza are federally uh, federal property, and the site stewardship is maintained by Mexico's Instituto uh, Nacional de Antropología y Historia, National Institute of Anthropology and History. The land under the monuments had been privately owned until 29 March 2010, when it was purchased by the state of Yucatan. If I'm saying it right. Chichen Itza is one of the most visited archaeological sites in Mexico, with over 2.6 million tourists in 2017. All right. Now we're going back to Queen Mu mythology. Augustus Lee Plungion believed that Queen Mu was a historical Mayan queen whose life was documented in the caves, bas reliefs, statues, and paintings he found at Chichen Itza. Excuse me. He asserted that Mu and her husband, Prince Ko, also known as Chakmu, were the inspiration for the Egyptian myth of Isis and Osiris. Ring a bell. Queen Mu was the elderless daughter of King Kanchi and Queen Zok. She was desired by her brothers Ko and Prince Ak. She chose Ko as her mate, and Prince Ak killed him in a jealous rage. Sounds like the Osiris and Set story. After Prince Ko's death, Queen Mu fled to seek refuge in the land of Mu, also known as Atlantis. When she reached the location where it once was, she found that the civilization had disappeared, so she made her way to Egypt. So this is pre-Egypt. All right. Queen Mu's name was drawn from the Mayan word for Macau, based on the bird imagery in the Mayan representation of her figure. Lee Plungion took this as further evidence that Mu and Isis were the same figure, as Isis is often represented as a winged figure. Chakmu means jaguar paw. Plungion believes the great cat was Prince Ka's symbol. Plungion claimed that the Egyptian Sphinx with its cat body and human head was built by Queen Mu to honor her dead husband. All right, let's go into the word Chakmu. All right, Chakmu. A Chakmu, also spelled Chakmu or Chakmu, is a form of pre-Columbian Mesoamerican sculpture depicting a reclining figure with its head facing 90 degrees from the front, supporting itself on its elbows and supporting a bowl or a disc upon its stomach. These figures possibly symbolize slain warriors carrying offerings to the gods. The bowl upon the chest was used to hold sacrificial offerings, including ploque, tamales, uh, tortillas, tobacco, turkeys, feathers, and incense. In Aztec examples, the receptacle is a uh, kuak, oxyocalco, a stone bowl to receive sacrifice human hearts, like shown in the movie The Apocalypto. If anyone ever seen that, go check it out if you haven't. Uh, Chakmus were often associated with sacrificial stones or thrones. Hmm. The Chocmoo form of sculpture first appeared around the 9th century AD in the Valley of Mexico and the northern Yucatan Peninsula. Aztec Chocmoos bore water imagery and were associated with Tagalog, the rain god. The symbolism placed them on the frontier between the physical and supernatural realms as intermediaries with the gods. All right. There's a description underneath the image. Maya Chakmul from Chicken Issa excavated by Lee Plungion in 1875, now displayed at the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City. All right. Let's go in a little bit into the form. The Chacmo is a distinctive form of Mesoamerican sculpture representing a reclining figure with his head facing 90 degrees from the front, leaning on his elbows and sporting a bow or a disc upon his chest. There is great variation among individual chalk mules, with some possessing heads that are right facing and the others left facing, and some with the heads facing upward. Some examples have movable heads. The figure may be lying on its back or on its side, and the abdomen can be sunken below the level of the chest and knees or at the same level. Some chalk mules were raised upon rectangular bases. Some of the figures are richly attired, whereas others are almost naked. The chalk mules of Chicken Izza and Tola depict young men with warrior attributes, while the chalk mules of Mukhakan depict early men with wrinkled faces and erected penises. Excuse the word. Chalk mule from Gamo, uh, Gamasimo, Costa Rica combines human and jaguar features and grips a bowl. The face of the figure looked upward, and the bowl was apparently used to grind foodstuffs. A wide variety of materials were used to sculpt chalk mold, including lime, stones, and hard metaphoric and igneous rock types. Igneous rock types, how do you say it properly? Other materials employed include ceramic and cement. So why you think everybody's doing this all at one time and it's becoming sort of like almost like a worldwide thing? That's coming from this story right here about the man Chakmo. You know, everybody doing the take me through the what we going or the bird walk, how they be doing the dance or whatever. But you get the picture though. This is that story. This is a cosmic story playing out in real time. All right. Okay. So now we're finna go into the book, the ancient giants of America. Let me pull it up. The ancient giants who ruled America. All right. Then I'm about to go into the story called Atlantis in the Colorado River Desert, Nevada News, 1947. All right. This is finna get interesting. All right. Near the Nevada, California, Arizona border area, 32 caves within a 180 square mile area were discovered to hold the remains of ancient, strangely custom 8-9 foot giants. They had been laid to rest wearing the skins of unknown animals similar to sheepskin fashioned into jackets with pants described as prehistoric zoot suits. All right, the same burial place had been found 10 to 15 years earlier by another man who made a deal with the Smithsonian's. The evidence of his find was stolen and covered up by Darwinian scientists. Dr. F. Bruce Russell had come to Death Valley from the East Coast for the sake of his health. He had taken up mining in the West and was exploring across the Colorado River into Arizona. Follow me here. What he found, he described as the birthplace of a tribal hierarchy within the ritual hall of an ancient people. Hmm. He felt that some unknown catastrophic had driven them into these caves. All the implements, excuse me, all of the implements of their civilization were there, including household utensils and stoves. Dr. Russell reported seeing hieroglyphics chiseled on carefully polished granite, which is a stone. Not this one, but a stone like this within what appeared to be a carven temple. Another cave led to their sacred hall, which contained carvings of ritual devices and markings similar to those of the Masonic order. You wonder where they get their you wonder where they get their rituals and ideas from. Hmm. It's telling you right here. A long tunnel from this temple led to a room where Russell said well preserved remains of dinosaurs, saber toothed tigers, imperial elephants, and other extinct beasts were paired off in niches as if on display. All right. 10 to 15 years earlier, the caves had been seen by another miner who had fallen from the bottom of the mine shaft. In this book, Death Valley Man Brooke, Brookie Lee related a conversation among residents of Death Valley concerning the local uh, Paiute Native American legends of an underground city at Wingate Pass. After falling through the ceiling of an unknown tunnel, the miner had followed it 20 miles north of the Panamint Mountains to discover a huge ancient underground city. Right? He saw arching stone vaults with huge stone doors and a polished round table in the center of their council chamber, which had once been lit by ingenious lights fueled by subterranean gases. So this was actually a underground chamber, uh, sort of like a council meeting room where they had a round table in the center, and this is where they would discuss things of that nature. All right, getting back into it. Leaning against the walls were their tall gold spears. He said that the designs on their thick golden armbands resembled the work of the Egyptians. The tunnel ended at an exit overlooking Furnace Creek Ranch in California's Imperial Valley. He could see from there that the valley had once been underwater. The tunnel entrance had been a dock or a quarry located halfway up the side of the mountain. A deal was made with the Smithsonian Museum for the find, but the miner was betrayed by his partner. The evidence was stolen and the entrance concealed. In a 1940 mining journal, another find was reported of much work gold found in an 8-mile long cave near San Bernardino. University of Arizona professor Vine DeLauro, himself a Native American, made a similar accusation against the Smithsonian for covering of the remains found within the burial mounds of the mound builder civilization. Surviving diaries from before the time of Darwin attested to these discoveries. The mound builders were a different civilization than that of the Indians, they said. The mounds contain the remains of hundreds of giants along with the bones of giant mastodons. Mastodons. Let's look at that word real quick. Just want to do this real quick just to, for my own, those that's watching, understanding. Mastodons may have played ancient roles in Native American culture of the Pacific Northwest. In 1987, Carl E. Gusta, Gustafson recovered fossil evidence of a late Pleistocene mastodon far away from where the species were typically roamed. Um, is it member of genius Mammoth, Jennifer Mammoth, which was in endemic to North America and lived from the late Miocene to the early Holocene. All right. So basically, it was a picture of an old ancient like elephant with horn, like tusk that come out. Something that what you would call a mammoth back then. All right, it says a large extinct elephant-like mammal of the Miocene to Pleistocene, uh, efflux having teeth of a relatively primitive form and number. Relatively primitive form and number. All right, so let's go back. All right, so now we know what that means. All right, in Cincinnati, Ohio, the giant bones were found with large shield swords and engraved stone tablets. I mean, in Kentucky and Tennessee, the bones of powerful men of towering stature were excavated. Yeah. One of these 7-foot men was buried with an engraved copper plate beneath his head. A woman was also found. She was wearing a silver girdle with letters written on it. The Detroit Free Press reported in 1884 the discovery in Cartersville, Mississippi, of the remains of a giant with waist-length jet black hair down to his waist. He was wearing a copper crown. With him in his timber burial vault were his children who wore garments decorated with bone beads. The tomb was covered with large flag stones engraved with inscriptions. All right. In uh, Cayuga Township, uh, Niagara, if I'm saying it right, Niagara, there is a place called the Cemetery of the Giants, which was discovered in 1880. Those giants were 9 feet tall and appeared to have died violent deaths. Their axes were found with them. Giant bones were also unearthed from a rock fixture on Lake Erie Island. Now, a lot of that's in the Hebrew Israelite doctrine, they will relate this uh, violence death to when the spirit, the so-called spirit, was put on the Nephilim giants back in those days, and it caused them to war with each other until they killed each other off. Um, that's how the so-called story goes, or some people might call it a myth or whatever. But that's actually was a real event uh, that occurred in the Americas. Those giants were 9 feet tall and appeared to have died violent deaths. Their axes were found with them. Giant bones were also unearthed from a rock fixture on Lake Erie Island. In some of the finds of giant bones, the bones lay in confusion as if left on a battlefield. The Smithsonian does display some artifacts of the mound builders found with the bones of the giants, shell disc, and carved stone beads. Many of the bones turned to powdery ash within a short time of being exposed to the air. The Smithsonian has been reluctant to test some less fragile finds. The late vine Deloria said that it is because they might find a really early date for the bones and that it would be distressing to their Darwin timeline. All right. A lot of good information there. All right. Now we finna go into the book called The Lost Continent of Mu. Uh, the name of this chapter is chapter page 35, The Land of Man's Advent on Earth. Look up the word advent. We can look the word advent up real quick. Advent is a season observed in most Christian denominations as a time of waiting and preparation for both the celebration of Jesus' birth at Christmas and Jesus' return to the second coming. It begins on the fourth Sunday before Christmas, often referred to the Advent Sunday. Advent is the beginning of the liturgical year in Western Christianity. The name comes from Latin Adventus, coming arrival, translating the Greek parousia from the New Testament, originally referred to the second coming. All right, so we're gonna stop right there. So basically, you know what the word means. All right, again, the name of the title, The Land of Man's Advent on Earth. All right, let's get into it. In the land of Mu, we have unquestionably found where man made his advent upon the earth. Various records con- conclusively prove that the land of Mu was the biblical Garden of Eden. The records show that the land of Mu lay to the west of America and to the east of Asia, and therefore in the Pacific Ocean. Data that I have examined also show that the motherland was in the Pacific Ocean. Because much of this data consists of the actual remains of the vanished continent, on parts that were not submerged, there still remain vest, uh, vestiges of temples, traditions, sanctuary, and sacred symbols, and the written evidence and inscriptions show that the mute mentals of a vanished race originated in Mu. The authenticity of these remains is collaborated in every possible manner by written records, by inscriptions, by customs, by language, and finally by traditions. I have established by this indisputable evidence the place where there was a prehistoric civilization. Much of this evidence is uh, concretely Creekly, furnished by stone temples, stone monuments, stone sanctuary, cut and dressed stone, waiting shipment, and the quarries from which the stone came. In these quarries, unfinished sanctuary have been found, and as these discoveries have been made in the South Sea Islands, it demonstrates beyond the shadow of a doubt that these islands were once part of the submerged continent of Mu. The records and data is based on the supposed age of the uh, Troiano manuscript shows that the land of Mu was in existence up to the very edge of the historical times. The land of Mu was in existence up to within 12,000 to 12,500 years ago. Taking the island upon which remains the traditions have been found, I have sketched a map showing where Mu was situated in the Pacific Ocean. There is nothing upon which a base either a western or a northern coastline. From various records, it would seem that the continent was made up of three separate lands divided from each other by narrow seas or channels, but were or how these divisions were made by nature, there is nothing to show except possibly an Egyptian hieroglyphic which represents three long, narrow lands running from east to west. Something we mentioned earlier about hieroglyphics being discovered in Chicken Itza, or the pyramid, the step pyramid in Mexico, your continent, your continent, Mexico, if I'm pronouncing it right. All right, let's get back into it. For various reasons, the principal one being colonization, I think the land ran much further north than has been shown. I have given Easter Island as the southeast corner, Tonga, Tabu as about the southwestern corner, the Ladrones on the northwestern corner, Hawaii in the north, and no defined northeastern corner. As will be seen, I have made many large bays and estuaries because records show that the land was low without mountains. As the land was so low and rolling with immense plains, it would naturally have a coastline similar to the one I have drawn. Both the Troiano manuscript and the Codex Quartiesius um, yeah, refer to the land of Mu as the land of hills of earth or of earth, ridges of earth. The Greek record refers to it as plains. I feel convinced that all three of these records are correct because up to the time that the continent vanished beneath the Pacific, there were no mountains. The volcanic workings which sent Mu down beneath the waves were predatory to mountain risings. So the reason a lot of these mountains exist is because of the sinking of the land of Mu, and beneath the waves were um, mountains rising up out of the waters. It says Frederick O'Brien, who has written most interestingly of the South Sea Islands, says Darwin theory is that these islands are the tops of a submerged continent or land bridge which stretches its crippled body along the floor of the Pacific Ocean for thousands of leagues. A lost land whose epic awaits the singer, a mystery perhaps forever to be unsolved. There are great monuments, graven objects, hieroglyphs, customs and language, island people with suggestive legends, all perhaps remi- um, remnants of a migration from Asia or Africa 100,000 years ago. Here, 3 centuries ago, there were discovered by the peoples of the great world and rurally, excuse me, encountering civilization They did not build, they were dying here with their passing. Vanishes the last living link with our prehistoric past, and I was to see it before it disappeared forever. Excuse me. Where we find specks of land out of water with incontrovertible evidence of continental resources, we are made doubtably certain that these specks are parts or remains of a continent. These bits of land are, as I have already said, little islands peoples by savages. Let me say that again. These bits of land are, as I have already said, little islands peopled by savages. They are thousands of miles away from any mainland, and it is therefore the strongest possible proof, stronger than any record, inscription, or tradition, that back in prehistoric times they there was a continent and that the continent was peopled by highly civilized human beings. Alright. The ancient record and remains found on the South Sea Islands showed up that man was created a civilized being, but untortured and uncultured. He was created with a knowledge of his own soul, and he believed in the worship the deity. It is revealed by the presence of certain figures used as sacred symbols that man generally was at that time in an undeveloped intellectual state, and the simplicity of the first sacred symbols was necessarily in order to convey ordinary subjects to his mind that he might grasp them more fully. When, however, we first get in touch with man thousands upon thousands of years after his advent upon earth. Remember what advent was about, um, the traditions of the Christians, waiting on the Messiah to return, and some dealing with the birthday, things of that nature. And let me read that over again. When, however, we first get in touch with man's thousands upon thousands of years after his advent upon earth, we find that in spite of his original lack of intellectual development, he was then in a highly enlightened and civilized state, and that was more than 50,000 years ago. Certain archaeologists have in their writings touched the subject of the land of Mu and the land of the West, but as they took no pains to verify various records that came before them, but simply made deductions, and as these deductions have seen their way into print, it is time that readers who are interested in the early appearance of man on Earth should be informed of certain positive facts based upon my own careful investigations. Right? Uh, Shalaman, Shalaman, on apparently two record only, the uh, Troiano manuscript and the Lusa record asserted that Atlantis was the land of Mu. Did you hear that? Atlantis. These records do not state that Mu and Atlantis were identical. Hold up, my bad. Let me go back. Well, basically it's self-explanatory, but yeah, let me read that again because I kind of got caught up into the moment. Shalaman's on apparently two records only, the Troano manuscripts and the Luhasa Luhasa record asserted that Atlantis was the land of Mu. These records do not state that Mu and Atlantis were identical. It is mere surmise on the part of Charlemagne's other records, which he might have consulted would have told him plainly that the land of Mu lay to the west of America and not to the east, the location of Atlantis. However, both Atlantis and the land of Mu were destroyed by volcanic eruptions and submerged, so they both submerged at the same time by volcano eruptions on the planet. Science has proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Lee Plongeon advanced the theory that Central America was the land of the West and therefore the land of Mu, based his deductions on the contour of the land around the Caribbean Sea, but forgettingly entirely that all records establish the fact that the land of the West were destroyed and submerged, while Central America to this day is, of course, unsubmerged. This is an as plausible plausible as saying that a certain man is dead while he is arguing some point with you. Possibly some of these errors arose from the fact that certain records were read in Europe and were written in America, and the readers, without thinking, based their calculations from Europe instead of from America. This would be in keeping with the reference to Atlantis made by the old Greek philosopher. The land beyond the sea, the Saturnian continent. The Saturnian continent, by the way, was one of the ancient names for Atlantis. The exact difference between the records is the lands of the West from America and the lands beyond the sea from Europe. Eventually, the writer of Greek record wished to avoid mistakes because he qualified his statement about the land beyond the sea by designating it clearly as the Saturnian continent, which was Atlantis. Surely this is plain enough to satisfy the most exciting. Exactly. The Troano manuscript places the sinking of the land of Mu as having occurred approximately 12,500 years ago. I think 12,000 is nearer correct. However, the figures must all be approximate only because the exact age of the Troano manuscripts is not known. Sanchez, high priest of the temple of Sias, told Solon that Atlantis sank 11,500 years ago and that the passageway to the land of the West was blocked on account of the sinking of this great country and the destruction of the interverting country beyond Atlantis by Calumnus, which made that country impassable. So basically, the land moved being in between the Americas and Asia, and on the other side where Atlantis was like a bridge to all the land masses, um, which made it possible um, to maybe get to these land masses by just simply traveling on a horse or however they were traveling back then. Uh, they had advanced technology, things of that nature. So, ain't no telling what kind of how many avenues of traveling they had. Um, but yeah, let me read that again. It says Sanchez, high priest of the temple of Sias, told Solomon that Atlantis sank 11,500 years ago, and that the passageway to the lands of the West was blocked on account of the sinking of this great country and the destruction of the intervening country beyond Atlantis by colonialism, um, which made that country impassable. This clearly eliminates the possibility that Atlantis may have been the land of Mu or the lands of the West. Those who have hitherto written about the land of Mu have ignored the most important records connected with this prehistoric continent, namely the remains on the South Sea Islands and the inscriptions on the walls of the Temple of Sacred Mysteries at Oxmal, Yucatans. That's the land we was talking about. in Mexico, the location to which may be added the astonishing traditions that are to be found among the South Sea Islanders. From the remains found on the South Sea Islands, backed by record and tradition, it is shown that the South Sea Islanders, in spite of their present savage and semi-savage state, were not always in that condition. It is clearly established that they are the descendants of highly civilized and enlightened forefathers. Looking at their prehistoric conditions, it is self-evident that far back in the prehistoric past, some great calamity overtook their ancestors. As you can see in other accounts, uh, fall of different civilizations, ancient civilizations to modern day. Uh, right. In their anxiety to sustain their monkey theories, scientists have tried to prove that man did not appear upon the face of the earth until the early Pleistocene, uh, Pleistocene time, but a pinprick can dissipate this scientific bubble. The remains of man have been found in the gravel beds of Europe, which were made by the saline waters of the last great magnetic catalysm, the geological glacial period, and occurrence that marked the end of the Pliocene. Pliocene. The den men of Nebraska were also wiped out by this same catalysm. catalysm. Nevin Upper City was built before the mountains were raised at the beginning of the Pleistocene. His lowest city was built tens of thousands of years before this and goes back into the te- tertiary area, page 122. This is also collaborated by the cut on Capitol Hill and Sumner, if I'm saying it right, Smyrna, Asia Minor, page 120. Would it help modern man to know the trials and tribulations that were endured by prehistoric man? It might, and then again, it might not. Scientists have always tried to maintain the theory that the white races originated in Asia, yet they have not a vestige of proof to sustain it. Not a single record of any description. Their deductions are only surmised. I will undertake to show in this book where they originated and trace them to Europe. One of the most startling discoveries due to Frederick O'Brien is that the natives of the Polynesians groups of the South Sea Islands are a white race. Excuse me, my mouth a little warm. Um, Further, they are an exceedingly handsome people, a link that joins perfectly the white races of the earth. Records show us, as I have established, that man undoubtedly made his advent on this earth in the land of Mu, and the Polynesian islands are jagged remains of the ill-fated continent that went down in a maelstrom of destruction. Records also show us that Mexico and Central America were colonized and settled by people from the land of Mu. Records also show us that Mexico and Central America were colonized and settled by people from the land of Mu. So basically, when they say colonized in this uh, text, I wouldn't consider it as the same as European colonization. So basically, we can substitute that word for civilized. Uh, So about the people from the land of Moose. So basically, because they basically that's all they did was go to different land masses and civilize civilization, and as you know, different civilizations started popping up on the landmass. You know, different, let's say, races. So that we see today, but back then they were, ancient. Um, Traditions also established the fact that these first colonizers from Mu were blind whites, that were blind white people were driven from the land by another white race of more swarthy complexions. Hold on, I might mis interpreted that section. Okay, brunettes that the blind white people sailed in their ships to a far off land in the direction of the rising sun east, and there settled in the northern part of Europe, Scandinavia of today. It is also made plain by these same records that southern Europe, Asia Minor, and northern Africa were colonized and settled by the brunette race by way of Mayak, Central America, and Atlantis. Also, they trying to basically trying to say, I guess they trying to say that these landmass were um, traditions were established to the fact that these first colonizers from Mu were blind white. That these blind white people were driven from the land by another white race of some swarthy complexion. Okay, so it says swarthy complexion. So basically, we know that those were our people. You know, swarthy Moors, the ones that dark, real dark complexion. So, all right, so I was correct. So there was no mistake. All right, Scandinavia of today. Let me see. All right, so let me go back. That the blind white people sailed in their ships to a far off land in the direction of the rising sun east, and there settled in the northern parts of Europe, Scandinavia of today. It is also made plain by these same records that southern Europe, Asia Minor, and northern Africa were colonized and settled by the brunette race by way of Mayak, Central America, and Atlantis. I will quote, with his permission, some passages from Frederick O'Brien's fascinating book, White Shadows in the South Seas. The passage referred to are as follows: over the land bridge may have ventured the Caucasian people, the dominant blood in Polynesian today, and when the continent fell from the sight of sun and stars, saved in these spots down mountainous islands like Tahiti, Hiti, and the Marquesas. The survivors were isolated for untold ages. Here in these islands, the brothers of our long forgotten ancestors have lived and bred since the Stone Age, cut off from the stream of mankind development. So let's think about the land of Lemuria and when it talks about the stone edges and stuff like that that were found, in those areas. Right. Let me go back. It says here in these islands, our brothers of our long forgotten ancestors have lived and bred since the Stone Age, cut off from the mainstream of mankind development. Here, here they have kept the childhood customs of our white race, savage and wild, amid their primitive and savage life. It is evident from the foregoing that O'Brien based these paragraphs on the theory that the white race originated in Asia. It is an accepted theory, and O'Brien cannot be blamed for error. Yeah, I just want to reference some what I was watching earlier before I came into this to do this lesson. Brother Rich show he had brother what's the brother name? Sir Duke of Tears, where he was kind of building on this subject right here about the whole race, the so-called European race, and the whole happenings of how that came into um, existence. Go look at that. I recommend go looking at that video, and then you can get a more clearer understanding of how that fits into this particular subject. But anyways, moving along. On page 112 of his book, O'Brien's writes, "My savage friends with their clear features, their large straight eyes, and clear olive skin still show the traces of their Caucasian blood. Their forefathers and mine might have hunted the great winged lizards together through primeval, primeval wilderness until driven by whose knows what urge of the wanderlust or necessity certain tribes set out in that drive through Europe and Asia towards America that ended at last when a continent sank beneath their feet in the South Seas. Let us now leave the white Polynesians and visit one of the brown races from found further west in the group of South Sea island called uh, Myronesia. Myron, Myronesia. We find the brown as well as the white races of the South Sea Islands are today splendid segments of physical manhood. They resemble the finest of the old Greek bronze statues. The Fijians, a brown race, are said to be the most skilled of the South Sea Islanders. So basically, they resemble the Hawaiians of the day. Based on me looking at this picture with the all like skirts that the women wear with uh, the flower like band that goes around the head with the things that they like put on you when you get out, like you arrive and you get off the airport and they greet you, um, welcome to Honolulu, and they put the traditional pieces around your neck. All right, moving along, the accompanying picture is one from a brown race, Ara Wiley, a native of Arawaiya Island of the Gilbert Group, which lies about 4,000 miles southwest of Hawaii. The picture shows a young lady with a extremely well shaped and well developed head of pleasing countenance and gentle expression. It has been said of her that she is a very gentle, lovable woman, but quick tempered and slightly jealous, but very dignified, notwithstanding her rich surroundings. Excuse me. She is the daughter of the king of Arombraya Islands, Ar- Arawali's head and face belong to the representative of a high type of civilization, although her dress is that of a savage. Poor Arawali, she is one of the tribe of cannibals, but strangely enough, she herself has never tasted long pig. The euphemistic name applied to human flesh by the natives. In her hand, she carries a fan, the ornamentation of which is the royal escutcheon of Mu, the Empire of the Sun. The Mu was basically the Empire of the Sun, where when you see the sun symbol, symbolizes illumination and spreading light throughout the earth plane, which is why they was going through different parts of the landmass to like civilize, teach civilization and organization throughout those parts. Um, let's see what stuff. Arrow Wali's head and face belong to the representative of the high type of civilization, although her dress is that of a savage. All right, so let's. I already read all this, so let's jump down. No ancient record has ever been found that mentions savagery as existing on any spot of the Earth's surface prior to the destruction of Mu. Then why did such magnif- uh, magnificent, magnificent specimens of man's as the forefathers of the South Sea Islanders became degraded cannibals? Our story of the great calamity that overtook the first race of men answers this question. Right, and it's showing like a picture of the queen holding princess holding the symbol of the sun of the sun disc, the land of man's ever on earth. Prince Wali of Arawala Raya Island, Gilbert grew carrying fan, the ornamentation of which is the royal escutcheon of Mu, the empire of the sun. So, moving right along, just showing some images of the fan and everything. All right, and that's it. I hope you like this lesson. I was able to bring forth, and like I said, a lot of these dances and stuff like that our people are like presenting as trends, like on TikTok, things of that nature. Um, the dance that maybe you know be bouncing and stuff like that. That's that's like a totem animal uh, attributes being played out in real time. Uh, Also, they got the dance where they be doing a bird walk. They be lifting one leg up and dancing, and however, and with a combination of the other dance, the first dance I just showed you, and why you think like in all most of our rap music where they be talking about chicken and stuff like that, and like when you come to like voodoo things of that nature in our culture, where they have to sacrifice the chicken and stuff like that to shed blood to carry out certain rituals and things of that nature. Like all this is to show you who we are on this earth and how we still carry some of these same characteristics to you know we based on our relationship with nature and how the cosmos is playing out through us in real time. And it's very interesting. You know what I'm saying? Like when you think about it, man, just able to piece this together and just show you that we're still here today and we're still doing a lot of the same things that we were doing back then, and it's no coincidence. So you know, peace to everybody out there. I would like to say, free the land, beloved, and you know, continue, you know, fighting as righteous fight, within the earth. So I'm gonna end it with one of my songs. Oh yeah, check me out on Rap Fame, um, under the name Samurai Bay, or you can simply just type in more ascensions. It'll take you straight to it. Also, check me out at moreascensions.com. Got a lot of good stuff on there, good material, a lot of things available. So just check me out on there, and you can follow me. If you want to get in contact with me, the emails listed at the bottom of the website and everything, and in the description of this channel. So that be said, you know,
Yeah, about to get to him. Yeah, I just get to him. I'm about to really do him. Yeah, I just get to him. I'm about to get to him. Yeah, I just get to him. I'm about to really do him. Yeah, no telling doing me in the time of truth. Speaking of power as I come through, connecting all this do. Still grinding, cause all I see is the top. Staying focused, my motivated, just grinding, don't stop. Yeah, I'm already hot as I walk through the fire. Looking for ways to step up more, higher and higher. Things I desire. We're going all the way down to the ride. Vision myself being called on, like a messiah. No, it ain't no lie. Because that's not what my heart desires. When I'm living me as a truth, but you see what it acting so fine. Rise up in the morning, moving like King Tut. Right. That's a king place, running through over the whole life. My brother on the bus. Ain't no less than all I we trust. Arm, leg, arm, head. Combining us, my people switch here. Love, so ain't no need to trust. Unless it's love, we hush and listen to the heart of ya. The family Chris is how I show my pedigree. I keep it funky like the baby breed. While I pull on my sleeve to clear out all of the debris. Stand down for all of my family, my tribe. While moving with the pin sharp focus to unlock what been hidden inside. So tell me why they can't respect this hustle, fam. Like the wisdom is spoke. Bring us up to another level. Then reversing the curses of hell. Yo, I scram. I just gave it to him. I done served it to him. Yeah, I done done it to him. Yeah, I just did it to him. Yeah, I just gave it to him. Yeah, I done served it to him. Yeah, I done did it to him. I just did it to him. Yeah, uh, yeah, yeah. What? 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 What?
yeah. Well, like I said at the end of that verse where I said something about the tribe of Ham. I already know that we're not Ham, we're actually Shem. So that was just a bar that I threw in to kind of get you to think, when they be trying to say that we're the people of Ham, you know, I know we're not Ham, we're Shem. So that's just was a bar to get you to think. But I'm gonna end this, you know. Now I want to say peace and love to everyone out there. Keep doing that work. Peace.